Howdy everybody, it's Joshua Fields Milburn from the Minimalists. Welcome back to Living Room Conversations. I didn't record one of these yesterday. It was quite the long day. We did a great podcast for the Minimalist podcast. It was nearly 4 hours, I think. We'll probably edit it down to about 3. But I brought two of my doctors on to talk about some health problems I've had and fixed over the last several years. And then we answer questions from the audience as well. So we really dove deep into a bunch of different health issues. And so by the end of the day, by the time I got home, it was late last night because, it was Tuesday night dodgeball, and so I couldn't miss that. And so I'm going to record 2 of these today. Anyway, we have a question today from Sarah. Sarah asks, what should you do with old photos, school books, DVDs, and VHS tapes that you want to get rid of? So let's say you're simplifying, but you have some of these sort of sentimental items or hard to replace items or items that you just don't feel like dealing with right now. Well, I think the truth is that we have to deal with all of our things at some point whenever we're simplifying, right? And there are a couple ways to do it. I could talk to you about how I did it with my old photos and some of the old books and DVDs and stuff like that. What I did is I just bought a relatively inexpensive scanner on Amazon. I could put a link to it in the show notes, or I guess these aren't show notes, they're YouTube description, whatever it is. And with that scanner, I had something called a scanning party. I'll put a link to that as well. So you put party at the end of anything, it ends up being a little bit more fun. You invite some friends over to scan some old photos with you. You might have these old boxes and boxes and boxes of photos. Well, here's the truth about those photos, that if they're just sitting in a closet or an attic or a basement, 2 things. Number one, they're certainly not getting used, right? If they're just sitting there collecting dust. And number 2, they could potentially get ruined, right? So you have a flood or a fire or theft. If someone were to steal those photos, or they just went missing, or they got water damage in the basement, they're just gone forever, right? And so I decided to scan them and then I have redundant backup. So I have a hard drive where I keep them, and also I keep them in the cloud. So if something were to happen, I know they'd be perpetually backed up. And then I got some of these little digital picture frames, just a couple of those. And you can do this sort of rotating photo album, just one photo at a time. And here's the interesting thing I found, that when you do that, when you scan the photos and you put them in a digital picture frame, people are actually intrigued by them. People rarely come over to your house and they say, hey, let me thumb through old photo albums of yours, right? No, they don't care about old photos, but there's something about them being in a screen or a digital picture frame that changes over every few seconds that, I don't know, maybe it's just that we're addicted or compelled by glowing screens, right? And so I scanned most of my photos, and I say most, actually it may have not even been most. I probably didn't scan most of them. I scanned all of the ones that I found to be intriguing or interesting, but inevitably when you find these old boxes of photos, there are a bunch of photos you're like, there's just a picture of my foot. I mean, why would I hold on to a photo like that? Or there's a picture of a person that I don't even know who they are, and here's another picture of a person I have no clue who this person is. There's no need for me to hold on to these. I didn't even know I had these photos in the first place. And so I gave myself permission to get rid of those, to just shred them or let them go. And with the ones that I scanned, I also got rid of the physical copies of those as well, because I have the backup. So that's what I did with old photos. If you don't feel compelled to do that with your photos, if you don't want to sit down and have a scanning party, which by the way is pretty fun, because when you bring people over and you can have dinner or drinks or whatever you want to have together, you have this experience together of scanning the photos. And as you scan them, you can talk about the memories that those photos trigger, as opposed to you just sitting down solitarily and one by one feeding them into a scanner. Which, by the way, the scanners that are out there now, it's pretty simple. It's not like the old, remember those old scanners, like on printers, you have to pull up the top and put one photo down and then hit a button and it would show up on your computer and it'd be upside down. No, today's scanners, you just feed the photos in one by one, and it scans them really high quality, and then you have a little memory card with your photos. As far as VHS tapes or DVDs, you can usually find a local place that will convert those onto some sort of hard drive or memory stick for you. You could also send it off to a place like there's a company called Legacy Box. I've not used them personally, and they certainly don't give me any money to talk about them, but I've heard some people who've had really good success stories with them. There's also a company called $1 Scan. I think it's just $1scan.com. And what they do is they convert old books, like old textbooks or maybe old journals, and even photos as well. You can send them your boxes of photos, and they'll convert that into a digital file for you if you don't want to have to bother with that. So you can certainly do something with those old items that are triggering memories, but here's the thing, they're not triggering memories for you right now, certainly, just sitting there collecting dust. And we always say, well, of course I'm going to get to it someday, but of course someday never happens. And so dealing with it now, I think, is the important thing. Putting together a quick plan, spend a day next weekend and just say, hey, I'm going to invite some friends over, we're going to scan these, I'll order the scanner, or maybe I'll send them off somewhere. But dealing with them also relieves that weight. They've been taking up that extra space in the back of your mind. All right, Joe, that's today's living room conversation. I think I'll record a second one of them today because I skipped yesterday. If you have a question for me or for Ryan or any of the guests that I bring onto these, you can just leave it below in the YouTube comments, and you can subscribe if you like these answers. We'll see you tomorrow, or maybe later today.